Are you working to try to grow your business, but you feel like a firefighter? Day-to-day operations can become very chaotic, and today we're going to talk about EOS and how it's a tool to help you control that chaos and to work on your business, not in your business, to try to create that freedom that all entrepreneurs want. Welcome to this video series. We're going to talk about transformational growth in your business and how we can help with strategy. I'm Matt Sain, owner of Central Body Company. We have gone from 1 location to 6 locations in 4 states in an 8-year period using proven practices that we've learned. Today we're joined by Christopher Fritz. He is an EOS professional implementer, and he is the expert to help you implement EOS in your business. Christopher, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we are here today to talk about EOS based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. What can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so EOS was created by a guy named Gino Wickman. He's been a lifelong entrepreneur since he was very young, and really he really changed the game in business when it comes down to implementing practical tools in your business, and it's now one of the most sold business books out there. And yeah, I mean, that's where it comes from, and many people have taken a lot of things out of that book and implemented into their businesses to give them more control of the organization. And yeah, it's a lot of 100-year-old business principles that have been around for a long time, probably be around for thousands of years longer, and just simple practical things that you can implement in your organization.
Okay. 6 components, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the discovery that Gino made was every business owner leadership team is dealing with about 127 things simultaneously, kind of one of those deals where as soon as you log in the morning, your day kind of is dictated by the challenges. And so what he figured out is that those 127 issues that you're dealing with are just symptoms of what we call 6 root causes, and we call them the key components of any organization. The first one is the vision component. The second one is the people component. There's the data component. There's the issues component. There is a process component. And then there's, of course, the traction component. I like to kind of just introduce those, and then we can dive deeper into those. But every business has those 6 things, and that's really where most of those issues stem from, is one of those 6 things.
You bet. So your role with EOS, what does that look like? How did you get first introduced to EOS, and where are you at now in your journey?
Yeah, so I too have been a lifelong entrepreneur. I started selling tools out of a basement pawn shop when I was about 7 years old in a family business, and just have always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I think I'll speak for a lot of people. I kind of tried to go down the corporate world for a long time, and really found that was not for me. It took me way too long. My life changed in 2013. I was hired by a local construction company here in Omaha, Nebraska, and we were just hardworking people. We were hitting about a $25 million revenue ceiling at the time, and we broke the ceiling. And when we broke the ceiling, I would say we went through a lot of uncontrolled growth, and it was very painful. And we didn't really know where to go from there. And we heard about this thing called EOS in about 2016 area. And an implementer came out, went through the system, and as soon as we saw it, it was kind of like the house lights turned on. We were like, this is what we need, and we implemented. And so I was not on the leadership team there, but I was part of that organization. And little by little, we started adopting EOS, and it just gave us the vehicle in order to execute on our vision. And I eventually just fell in love with that system. And so, at one point, I had kind of got into a general manager role within that organization, and really realized that I'm really passionate about helping people grow and scale their own businesses and break their own ceilings. And so I stepped away from that role in 2021, and I became an implementer in 2022, and just really have loved my involvement in these organizations. All my clients are great people. They all have great businesses making huge impact. And I just fell in love with the system. And so now I've been doing that for the last 3.5 years, and it's been great. So
awesome. And you are our facilitator, implementer, and you've helped us a ton. So we started our EOS journey about 7.5 years ago. We were scaling from a single location to a second location. And that was really difficult for me to keep, the flames down and to manage the chaos, right?
Yeah.
So it's been huge for us. My team at the time said, we can do this on our own.
Yeah.
And Matt, you're our implementer.
Sure.
And that became a really heavy lift for us. So in my journey through joining different groups that have helped me and been transformational, I am in the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, the Nebraska chapter. And what I recognized is that about 80% of the business owners in that group run on EOS, which I was like, okay. We started talking about it, right? And it's like a lot of the ones in my personal forum, there's 6 business owners in my forum, 2 of us were running on it. Neither one of us had a professional implementer. The other 4 were talking about it, right? So we actually wrote it into our Constitution because we believed so much in it that we need to hold each other accountable and just go all in, right? So how many of our forum members do you coach?
Yeah, I currently coach 4 of your teams out of the 6.
Awesome. So you talked about breaking ceilings, and you mentioned a $25 million revenue ceiling, right? That's a pretty high ceiling for any business owner, right? That's probably kind of top 2% as far as business owners. I didn't do my research, but that's a big number.
Sounds good. Yeah.
What does that look like now for that same business?
Yeah. So when I left there, I want to say that they are going to be in the $150 million range now, and they would attest a lot of that success to EOS and Traction helping them get there. And when I left there, I was general manager of about a $35 to $40 million portion of that, and so it's up and down that whole organization, and there's a lot of ownership even at the GM level. I mean, really what I loved about working there was I was really a business owner without the overhead expense at that time, and I had a big area of influence, which was great. So
awesome. We've talked a little bit about the components, right? I couldn't help but catch your smirk when you said people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You've also taught us that if we focus on the people in the process, that makes an 80% difference.
Yeah, so 80%. This is probably the same thing. I haven't done the actual math, but 80% of issues that most people are dealing with in their organization come between the people component and the process component. Most businesses, they got started, they kind of just had this crazy idea. Eventually, they need systems and processes that get them to that next available ceiling that they want to maybe hit or exceed. And really what we find is that you have to systemize your organization at some point in time. At some point in time, your business is scaled, there's a lot more people involved, and you can't just operate off of what we like to call tribal knowledge. That tribal knowledge in your head as the business owner can't just be expected that they know it. So we have to teach them the right and best way to do things every time. The people component, we can only scale our businesses at the rate of what we call right people, right seat. Right. So this has just been my experience, but most of the time, when you're dealing with something, you can really slow down and just say, well, really, is this a people problem or is this a process issue? And so, 80% of the time it's going to fall within those 2 components. And I'll be also very upfront and transparent that the people component's typically the last one that we want to handle because managing people is not necessarily easy and it can be difficult at times.
And then you throw in the avoidance of conflict.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Especially for my business owners. Anybody that's a visionary, if they're being honest with themselves, they don't love the conflict. They usually need to get somebody along the journey that can kind of relish that conflict a little bit better than they can.
Sure.
The culture is very important to visionaries. It's probably their number 1 priority is that the culture is still what they want it to be after years of running it. I have teams that'll be going through a major issue and they'll sort of convince themselves it's one of those other 5 issues on the key component. But when you really boil it down, it's a lot of things come back to the people component. I would say most issues can come down to that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So about 2 quarters ago, in one of our meetings with our senior leadership team, we had about most of our what we call rocks or goals were what we called RPRS issues, right? And so we had to make some really tough decisions. Yeah. And then flash forward to this last quarter, we get in the same room and we've solved about 85% of those issues, right? Yeah. And things are, I'm not going to say they're perfect, right? They're never going to be perfect, but things are a lot better by getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about people, for the visionaries out there that are, running the business and not working on the business, but in the business, one of the key hires for us, and we identified in the accountability chart, which is not an org chart, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's similar, but it's not
thank
the
you.
same.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Is the integrator role, right? So myself, I live with my head in the clouds. I've had to do every job in the business. The one that I did struggle with is implementing the processes that I dream up, or I go to performance groups and I say, this would be really great. We have this software system. It would solve all these problems. And then I come back and I sign up for it and I dump it on our manager's laps and I walk away and I'm like, and then I go back to check up and see if they're using it, and they're not. So talk a little bit about how a visionary is wired like myself, and how an integrator is that key person to basically connect that together for the business or any organization.
Yeah, I think most businesses are started by visionaries, and they sort of have to sit in that integrator role for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And then as time goes on, I think they either want to aspire for that higher role, or they start recognizing maybe their own faults, which is that they're not great at execution. They're not great at having tough conversations or getting in the weeds. And so what I love about EOS is it really kind of coined the term visionary integrator. Up until EOS existed, that really wasn't something that was floated out there. And so most visionaries, if they're trapped in that integrator seat, they themselves are not very fulfilled, typically,
right?
Because they started the business and they want to be out ahead, and then two, it requires a very severe amount of trust for you to hand over the business, the execution side to your business, right, to somebody. And so I think most of my visionaries kind of see their business as like a child of theirs. It's a family member. It's what they do. It's their bread and butter. And so we have a book in the EOS library called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about how the visionary integrator relationship is so important. And so visionaries, they are 30,000 foot view. They love staying up in the clouds, like you mentioned. They love keeping a handle on the culture. They love solving the biggest problems of the business. So if it's making its way up and down the accountability chart and nobody has solved it, give that issue to a visionary, and they would relish in the idea of figuring out how to solve that problem. They also usually manage big relationships in the industries that they're part of, because they're the founding entrepreneur. So they usually can close big deals. They can know a lot of people in the industry because of their tenure. An integrator is the opposite of that. An integrator is the nose to the grindstone. One of the biggest
to-do list, right?
Yeah, give me the to-do list. Give me the things that you want executed on. But really, the best way that I describe the visionary integrator's relationship is a visionary is responsible for coming up with the vision. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things that one of my clients or you have done is you showed your team what's your long-term vision, and we're talking long term. 25-year vision, and that's what visionaries do. And then the integrator role is really to make their job is to make your vision a reality. Mm-hmm. And so in the book Rocket Fuel, we talk about Roy Disney was Walt's brother, and without Roy, Walt's ideas would have just stayed ideas. Yeah. And so Roy was very instrumental in putting all that to rest and getting those things completed. And so integrators, they love LMA. LMA stands for leading, managing, and holding people accountable. As weird as that sounds, they like that. Okay. They run to conflict. They understand the value. They're good at it. They can hold people accountable. They are generally responsible for producing a profitable organization. So the P&L, not necessarily creating the P&L, but finding the issues in the P&L and fixing those issues is the responsibility of most integrators. They are also strategic problem solvers, and one of my favorite ones I've heard is they are the filter for the visionary. Mm-hmm. So visionaries can come up with 30 new ideas every meeting, seems like. Mm-hmm. That's what they do, and
usually a day.
Yeah, usually a day. Yeah. But we need somebody from a practicality standpoint to say, yes, we need to do that, or no, we can't do that because we're still trying to get the last stuff done.
Sure.
And so usually that relationship between the visionary integrator has to be so strong that that's really their first team in any organization.
Yeah. So that's an interesting comment right there or thought about the LMA side. And I think full disclosure, we've had conversations about our integrator and whether or not, he loves that, right?
Yeah.
Because there were some issues that were floating up to my level.
Yeah.
Right. And so we had to kind of work through that.
Yeah.
And we've done some coaching around LMA. And in fact, I just did that with my EO forum with a different implementer.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about LMA, we talk about the leadership, the managing, and then there's a formula, right?
Yeah.
Lead plus manage equals accountability.
Right.
And so holding people accountable really isn't a thing.
No.
We have to hire people that hold themselves accountable.
Yep.
And then how do we do that other stuff, right? Because I think for myself, even recently, I had a direct report because our integrator wasn't quite ready to take on marketing. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
He's not a subject matter expert, nor am I. I was sitting in that role. I wanted to work myself out of that role. We hired that role, and then it was up to me to hold that person accountable, which I'm not good at doing. So talk through that a little bit, and what missteps do you see somebody like me making in that area?
Yeah, I think anybody with the responsibility of LMA, they have to. There's always two non-negotiables. One, you have to want to be good at both leading and managing, because typically, if you're a good leader, that doesn't always make you a good manager of people, and vice versa. Sometimes I have people that are really great managers, but they're not great leaders. And so my job is to give the context between what's the difference between the two. The other non-negotiable that we say in EOS is that you have to genuinely care enough about the people who report to you for you to LMA them properly. So for instance, if you don't love somebody enough to sit them down and help them see where they're excelling and maybe not hitting your expectations, if you don't have that love for somebody to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, you're never going to be able to LMA well. And so we say that right away out the gate. Hey, these are two non-negotiables. And then just my experience shows me that people that do well with LMA, they've kind of mastered three things. And this is kind of a recent even revelation for me, is that I see a team struggling with LMA. I've kind of realized, one, not everybody knows how to do the stuff in LMA. So it really requires you to teach them, what does that mean? There's a checklist in the EOS toolbox, but if they've never practiced it, or they're having to do LMA in a live situation with a real employee, it's a really emotional situation, more than likely they're going to avoid the LMA. So if they're not familiar with the tools, or they've not practiced it or role played it, I think they struggle with that. The next piece about LMA is people can be fearful of it. So they might know how to do it, but ultimately they are fearing the conflict, or they're fearing the tough love that they might have to give to one of their employees, and so they'll avoid it. And to be honest, I'll see teams make excuses like, I didn't LMA this because of this reason. It's like, well, the brutal fact is probably that you don't know how to do it, you're fearful of it, or the third one is that they themselves might not be fulfilled by LMAing people. Yeah. And so what I have found over the years is that sometimes some of my clients have to realize we have this person in a leadership role, but they're not fulfilled by the LMA component. And so sometimes people will climb the ladder because they want the title, they want the pay, they want the responsibility. But the number one job description for a leader is LMA. Sure. And so if you are in a role and you've got direct reports, but you don't want to lead or manage that direct report, you're not fulfilled by that, you're probably secretly not really liking your job, which we talk about the EOS Life a lot in EOS in general. And I think that's most of my business leaders, is they aspire to have a group of people who truly love doing what they do every day. Right. And so I have a lot of teams that will realize we have this person who was an individual contributor. They were a great salesperson, let's say. So it's natural to promote them to a people leader, but not everybody actually loves that, and so some of my teams will actually send somebody back down into just a sales role, and there's nothing wrong with that. We still need really good salespeople. We still need people that can just function inside of the organization. And so that's just my experience, Matt, is that there's two non-negotiables with LMA. You gotta love it. You got to love the people that you coach, and you have to want to be good at both. But then it's those three hurdles that a lot of my teams struggle with. And then it's just part of the journey with EOS to get comfortable with the LMA side. Absolutely. Okay, so back to the normal visionary, right? And maybe I'm wired a little bit different, but I don't love LMA. No. I do love the leadership side of it. Yeah. The management side is, it's a little bit too
in the weeds. It doesn't allow me to sit with my gifts that I've been given by God. So,
right.
Or I believe that I've been given. So
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about like the visionary's role as far as LMA, and then also you mentioned the EOS Life, which you gave me as homework, right? And
Yeah.
I just finished the book,
Yeah.
and I bought the journal, so I'm doing my homework.
Yeah, it's good.
It was really good. It was an eye opener. So we can talk a little bit about that, and then maybe talk about the 10 disciplines, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think about visionaries and LMA, you're not wrong. Most visionaries will admit that. It's like, yeah, either I don't love it or I'm not good at it. And so I like to teach that LMA really should start and stop with your integrator. So if you have the right integrator in place, a visionary shouldn't have to LMA the integrator, and so it's built into the accountability chart like that. I think what I'm hearing you talk about today is more of what we would like to call your genetic encoding, or your area of genius, whatever that may be, whatever you call it. All the business books out there all call it a little something different, but your genetic encoding as a visionary. And I think what happens in business is people try to sort of fit the role instead, and they almost choose safety, if that makes sense, over fulfillment.
Okay.
So, what I hear you saying, Matt, is that you've more so accepted that you're a visionary.
Yes.
And you're trying to live in what's known as your unique ability. And your unique ability is that of a visionary. And until EOS came around, we weren't really giving people, empowering them to sit as a visionary, because we didn't even know a visionary existed.
Right.
It was usually just general manager. And so, that's really part of this journey. Is I think that every business owner wants everybody to live in their genius, or in their unique ability, as Dan Sullivan would call it, from Strategic Coach. And at some point in life's journey, people have to say, well, I've been choosing safety my whole life. And that's why, by the way, that's why I'm an EOS implementer, is because I finally chose fulfillment over safety, and I was basically just trading my time for revenue, for income for my family. And I realized at one point, like, there's only one way to know if I'm gonna be a business owner, and that's to jump all in and live in my unique ability. And EOS implementation is what I believe to be my unique ability, is to go and live that out daily. And so we talk about the EOS Life, and the EOS Life. When I met with you and your team originally, I said, hey, I want to give you two things. I didn't unearth the EOS Life on you right away, but secretly, that's really what I was trying to give everybody on that leadership team, is their EOS Life. And we tell our clients up front, hey, we're trying to do two things for you. One, we want to help you make your business more profitable, which, not for the profit side. I mean, yeah, we want to be profitable, but profit gives you the freedom to live inside of your purpose. So if we have this great purpose within your organization, and you're not profitable, and your back's against the wall, and you can't live in the freedom of that. So that's the first thing that we want. Number two, we want people to have more control of their organization, so that you're running it's not running you. And I would love to pick your brain. I'm sure you've thought of times in your journey as an owner where you're like, hey, this thing that my family started, you and your family started this business in 77. It's a really cool story. And at some point, this isn't what I wanted for myself and my family. I started this journey to be independent and have freedom and have control of this thing, and it got so big that all of a sudden it kind of became unmanageable, and I needed to hire more people to help me get there. And so the reason all that's important is that we want everybody to live their EOS life. And getting you profitable and giving you more control elevates you to get those 5 things that we wrote in that book. And that's just for everybody listening, it's doing what you love, so being part of the industry that you love being part of, doing business with people that you love, that fit your core values, that think the way that you think. And business is a lot more fun when that's the case. And so we establish core values, and then that helps you with those things. The next one is having a huge impact in whatever industry that you're part of. I'm very blessed as an implementer. I work with a lot of different businesses. I have a very eclectic group of clients, and they all have their own industries, and they're all really passionate about the impact that they're making. Hopefully the other thing is being compensated appropriately. And that's not just for employees, that's for owners, making the money that they feel like it's worth it by having out all the expenses and overhead cost and risk and all those things. But the big one, Matt, that most of my clients end up talking about is having time for other passions. And that's a big piece of EOS, because many of us, our business, don't get me wrong, it's what we love doing, it's our livelihood, but many times our businesses can be economic engines that also fuel us in other areas and other passions. And so we want to give you so much control of the organization that when you get home from work, you don't have to feel like you just have more work to do, that you can actually shut it off and then go and do other things that move you forward personally. Actually, your integrator just called me. He was on vacation, and first of all, I gave him a hard time for calling me. I said, hey, first of all, but what the best part about that conversation that I loved is that he said, I'm calling you because, one, I just wanted to talk to you. We're good friends at this point. But two, he said, I just wanted to call and thank you for the help that you've gotten me, because I haven't received one phone call since I went on vacation. And I said, Chris, that's amazing. That's exactly what we want. And he's like, everybody's handling their stuff. So we've learned how to delegate. We've learned how to elevate. That's another tool of the system. So you're delegating responsibilities that you've identified you're not good at or you're not fulfilled by to somebody like an integrator or a leadership team, and they're stepping up and proving to you that they are trustworthy. And then that allows you to settle into your unique ability, which is talk about growth, talk about vision, continue to do those things. And so, long response for a really good question, but I would say in general, that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is help people get to that spot.
Well, and I think all of our viewers and listeners, that's what they want, right?
Yeah.
Is they want freedom.
Right.
So they want to be able to get up in the morning and decide what they want to do with their time.
Right.
Right. And who they want to spend their time with.
Yeah.
And so that is all part of that book, right? Like, you start listing out the people that kind of fill your bucket, that give you energy, and then you list out some of the people that don't, right?
Yeah.
And so we're both men of faith, and
Yes.
I really believe that iron sharpens iron.
Agreed.
And so, are the people that you're with sharpening your blade,
right,
or are they dulling it, right? And so, being able to get to a spot in the business where we can surround ourselves with people every day that we want to be around, and put them on the team, right? And then they're fulfilled, and it just kind of starts spooling upwards. So that's really cool. You mentioned a couple other things that spurred some books that I've listened to recently. Who Not How.
Yes.
And so, let's talk about the 4 freedoms that book talks about. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, so we can work through it. If you,
I don't remember all of them at the moment, but yeah. I mean, the book Who Not How, just at the base of all of it is focusing on this idea that I think sometimes in business, especially when you run your business off of EOS, because when you have a system in place that highlights your areas of opportunity, we call them issues, but really it's an opportunity, it's a challenge, it's the new hurdle, it's whatever you want to call it. We basically figure out that, hey, along the way, our natural tendency is to say, oh, we need more marketing. So how do we just learn how to do more marketing?
Right.
Well, that's not always the right solve, if that makes sense, because if you're not a subject matter expert in marketing in today's world where it's me neither, if you are not a subject matter expert, you can go down the rabbit hole of trying to solve that problem. And here's the worst part, is that you'll learn a new piece of information thinking that you solved that problem, but in reality you're not even scratching the surface on what's actually needed. So the book Who Not How, at the premise of that, is to find your who's, and it's less about learning a new skill set. Isn't more to say, you know what, this makes more sense for me to go ahead and find somebody who already has mastered that craft, so that from an investment perspective, I'm getting far more for my money, and a lot less hurdles along the way, which is why, you mentioned it earlier, is why you've kind of stepped out of the marketing role within your organization. Now, don't get me wrong, if you don't have that person in that role, you have to sit in it for a period of time, but ultimately you're trying to find the who's to help you get there, and that goes up and down your whole organization. And so that's really the premise behind that book, and it's part of a 3-book trilogy called the Transformational Trilogy, and that's why, is because we don't typically think who, we think how.
And that's what I loved about that, because you can immediately put that into practice anytime an opportunity or an issue pops up. Instead of saying, how are we going to fix this as a team, who do we need to get on the team, or
Yep.
who do we need to hire, outside firm, whatever, to solve this problem. So it's really a mind shift for me. And then it talks about one of the things that I loved about it is stop doing $25 an hour work unless you really enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Like mowing the lawn. If it's therapeutic, great. But if you don't like to mow the lawn, like hire somebody to do that.
Yep.
So that, right, you can live in that unique ability.
Yeah, and I mean, we've with your team, we've talked a lot about the 10 disciplines, and that's one of them. We call it don't do low value work. Even myself, I actually was just telling you before we were up here, I just bought a new mower, and I was excited. I was not happy to buy a new mower, but after I mowed, it cut an hour and a half off of my mowing time. Now, could I delegate that to somebody? Sure. My daughter was like, "Hey, Dad, why don't you just hire somebody to come mow your yard or mow the yard?" And it's like, well, that's probably not super cost effective.
Yeah.
That might be even wrong thinking for me, and so, but after I got the new mower and cut an hour and a half off my time, I was like, man, think about that for a second. I just cut an hour and a half to 2 hours off of my day. What could I be doing instead? And so it's taking those 10 disciplines as well and saying, well, what is all the low value work that I'm doing? And even delegating and elevating, there's actually 5 ways to delegate and elevate, not just give it to somebody else. I mean, you can outsource it, you can automate it, you can eliminate it.
Right.
You have all these other opportunities that people don't think about. And so that's what EOS is great about doing, is creating avenues for you to slow down, float up to 30,000 feet and say, are we working on the right things, or are we just stuck in the proverbial suck every day, and just living, just to get by?
Sure. So EOS is worldwide now, right?
Yeah.
And it started, 1987?
Yeah.
It took a while to spool up.
Yeah. There's been several renditions of it. Yeah. I think when we talk about it by EOS in its sort of final form, we say early 2000s, but yeah, it had been in works for a long time before that. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many implementers there are and how many businesses in the world are operating on it?
Yeah, so currently we are sitting, these numbers change quarterly because it's growing like crazy. I think we're approaching close to 1,000 worldwide.
Wow.
And
implementers, yeah.
Just people like myself, throughout the world, and it's been really cool to see. I mean, we all get together once a quarter. It's really cool to get together either virtually with others that can do it or in person. And so the number of businesses running off of these as well is just dramatically growing. So I think what we've said recently is we're approaching about 200,000 full day sessions with leadership teams is what we've completed. And so I think we're estimating somewhere between 30 and 40,000 businesses running off of EOS implementer-led EOS implementations. Mm-hmm. But we actually estimate, out of this book Traction, we estimate somewhere between 10 times that have read something out of the book Traction and put it into their business right away.
Wow.
So if that means there's 30,000 businesses in the world running off of EOS implementer, led EOS, there's probably 300,000 businesses out there with something out of that book inside of their organization, helping them get more control and make more profit.
Absolutely. So I don't like to look in the rearview mirror, right? But I do every once in a while kind of reflect on where our business would be now if we would have hired a professional implementer like you back when we started that journey, right?
Yeah.
So, running on it for about 6 years ourselves and then getting you on board has just really changed the dynamic and the trajectory of our team and our company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen that type of transformational growth and that change with multiple companies that you've worked with, right? It's not just us.
Yeah. This is so it's ironic, right? I think a lot of businesses have to go through enough pain in order to kind of need exterior help, and so I think what happens naturally is that people will go through some ceilings, and then you read about a book like Traction, and then you go and you put some stuff in the business, and you get hope in that moment to get you through to the next ceiling or maybe fix it all.
Right.
And one thing I've noticed in my time as an implementer is that I actually have taken on a lot of teams that have self-implemented and kind of get to a spot in that journey where they really come to an end of growth. And I usually contribute that to a few different things. The first one is we do have a proven process. So the way that I would implement EOS is going to be different than the way you would if you don't have the proven process that EOS has given us. Like, hey, this is how it works. In fact, I actually just took on a new client. They implemented about 9 months ago with no implementer, and they just now got their accountability chart built 9 months later.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as I heard that, I said, that should have been done in the first 30 days, or at least a rough draft in the first 30 days. And so I show them the process, and they go, well, hold on, this is way different than we were doing. No wonder we're not gaining any traction. So, so that's the first thing. Number two, I'll kind of let the cat out of the bag, but most of the time, the last thing that we do is we solve our people issues. And really, when you hire an implementer, it's not probably widespread said like this, but it's sort of happening in the background of your first year of EOS. Is a good implementer is going to be pushing you sort of secretly to solve your RPS issues, the ones that you've never actually pursued. Right. And so I think that that's what you get when you get somebody like me coming in, because I'm going to have sort of an unbiased opinion. And I'm just going to say, well, the bigger issues that we need to solve is the people issues. And in the beginning of people's journeys, we build their accountability chart, and then we kind of take inventory on what are our people issues. And it's amazing. Some of the first people that I've done the accountability chart with, they had 90 to 100 people. And once we do these activities, they find out that over half of the people don't fit their core values.
That's crazy.
So no wonder they're having such a hard time growing their business, because they used to do this thing where they would hire fast and fire slow. Yep. And we flip everything on its head and we say, well, really what we should be doing is we should be a lot more intentional about who we bring into the culture, hiring slow and then firing quicker, firing fast. I call it hire slow, fire fast. And so I think that's
been big for us.
Yeah. And no offense to anybody that's done their own implementation. It's just that I don't think they go into it saying, I'm going to go solve all my people issues. Right. The third thing that I think you get with an implementer coming in, people think I'm a consultant, and I'm really not. Every now and again, like I'll work with a team that comes from my industry background, which is construction, but really I'm not a consultant. I'm not there to tell you how to run your business in your industry. What I am is I'm a teacher, I'm a facilitator, and I'm a coach. And a lot of my teams, they will just keep me on board because they just like being able to participate in the meeting instead of run that meeting. And you and I have talked about that because in the beginning, when you talked about traction, you were the integrator, you were the visionary, and you were the implementer. You were wearing 3 seats that you couldn't possibly sit in a strategy session with your team. Right. Dan Thrasher, which is the business I came from, he just said, we will always have an implementer of somebody to facilitate for us, because I just want to participate. I don't want to have to do the prep work. I don't want to have to do the work to come in and prep to facilitate. I just want to be a participant and sit and listen to the team and catch the things when I don't have the responsibility. And so I've seen dramatic changes within organizations when they buy into the system, they trust the process, and they trust my coaching to say, hey, at the root of most of this is a majority of people issues. And so some of the first rocks that you're going to take on board as an EOS implementation is to solve as many of those as we can. And what we talk about in EOS is if you can get your people component to 80% stronger or better, you can dominate any industry that you're in, because you got the people on board that have the skill set, they get the role, they want it, they have the capacity, and they fit your core values. And so, I was just talking to a team the other day, and I said, in an environment where you have 80% or better RPS people, and people are disciplined, you have to have a lot less LMA when that's what's happening originally. Sure. You have to ramp up LMA on the back end when you're not disciplined and people don't fit your core values. It's almost a mountain that's too hard to move.
Kind of back to that accountability side, just hiring people that are self-accountable, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you find yourself in an organization where you're having to continually master LMA, you probably don't have a disciplined leadership team. Yep. That's just the truth of it.
Absolutely.
And Jim Collins talks about that in chapter 8 of Good to Great. He talks about the flywheel effect. And the third series is creating a culture of discipline. Yep. And that's what EOS does, is it creates discipline coming into sessions, once a quarter, your weekly L10s, the quarterly conversations, all those things. It's just discipline. And ultimately, that's what we aspire, is for you to have a disciplined culture that you don't have to LMA as much. You still are going to have to do things every now and again, but hopefully that's not 90% of your job is just going out there and LMAing. Right. Hopefully people are just doing it on their own.
Yeah. And, full disclosure, this is work.
Yeah.
Right? And most of the time when you engage with a team, it's about a 2-year journey.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of work for us, but the results are definitely worth the effort. So I appreciate you, Christopher.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. If you're a business owner or entrepreneur that is struggling with your business and needs resources to help you grow your business, please join us for our video series. There are plenty of resources in our show notes.